What's up everyone, and welcome back for another recipe. I hope everyone is having a spooktacular October. I have some fresh apples from apple picking this month that I need to use up, so I wanted to create a recipe for you guys using those because I know a lot of people get into the same situation. So for today we're going to make a caramel apple protein cookie. This is going to be a very easy recipe to make. We're going to get started by preheating the oven to 325 degrees and get to mixing everything in our bowl here. Now to make these cookies high in protein, I'm gonna be using my MTS machine whey in pumpkin pie, but if you don't have the pumpkin pie, I'm sorry. But you guys can use substitutes like vanilla ice cream or American apple pie would both be great in this recipe. So to get started, we'll start right with our protein, and I'm gonna add 1 full scoop, which ends up being 32 grams, and that's gonna give us a full 25 grams of protein and not add too much fat to it either, because this protein is only 2.5 grams of fat in a scoop, which I love because it's so super creamy if you just use it like a protein shake, but it's great for baking as well. Base of the cookies, I'm gonna use a combination of just Quaker Quick Oats and flour. So I like to use both just because the oats give it that hearty, oaty taste and texture, as well as some good nutrition. So we're gonna add a 1/2 cup-ish of oats. And then for flour, you guys can use whatever flour you like. I just happen to have this huge bag of white whole wheat flour, but I would prefer wheat flour, but use what you guys want. We're gonna add 1 full cup of the flour. And if you choose to not use the oats or only use oats, vice versa, you're just gonna wanna add a total of 1.5 cups. However you get there will be just fine. Next for sweetener, I'm going to use my Splenda brown sugar. You guys can use regular brown sugar if you want. I just really like the sweetness of this. It's very intense. So I'm going to use just 1/2 of a tablespoon. Add that for sweetness. That should be all we need between the pumpkin protein. That's gonna give it a nice sweetness in itself. Last dry ingredient is gonna be our leavening agent, which for today is gonna be the baking soda that helps our cookies rise. And I'm gonna use 1/2 of a teaspoon. And what you're seeing me use is 1/4 of a teaspoon, so we're gonna add 2 of those. At this point, just take your fork and go ahead and mix up and make sure your dry ingredients are mixed up really well before we go ahead and add the wet ingredients. Dry ingredients are mixed. Next, we're gonna get into the wet ingredients. That word's disgusting. We're gonna start with pure vanilla extract. It smells so good. You need to have baking vanilla on hand. We're gonna add a full tablespoon of baking vanilla. I'm using 1/2 of a tablespoon to be confusing, so we're using 2 of those. We're gonna add 1 whole large egg. I'm gonna separately crack this and stir that up, whip it all up before we add it in there. So the egg yolk is gonna add some fat to this recipe, but as I always like to mention, egg yolk is actually a great source of nutrition for you guys, great source of B vitamins, so it's gonna give you loads of energy, as well as fat and cholesterol. And actually your body does need cholesterol. It's kind of a myth that it doesn't, because your body cells are comprised of cholesterol, so you do need to take some in through your diet. Key is not taking in too much. We're also gonna add a little bit more fat, a little more flavor via some peanut butter. I just have here some crunchy peanut butter, although it's rather creamy, and I'm going to add we're gonna add 1/4 of a cup. We're gonna add a lot of peanut butter, 1/4 of a cup of this peanut butter. We're gonna add a little bit of salt because I forgot to add that before. And for the great part, our apples. I went ahead and I already chopped up 2 apples. They're about medium-sized apples. Go ahead and peel them if you want and chop them up in little tiny bits. And just go ahead and add those into your mixture. At this point, go ahead and stir everything together, fold it all in. Just gonna use my large spoon here and mix this in. So the mixture's still very dry once you mix it together. Next, what we're gonna do is add some milk to it. I'm using the unsweetened cashew milk, and I'm just gonna add a little bit at a time. I'm gonna take my 1/4 of a cup and just do 1/8 of a cup, add that to the mixture, and stir it together. I'm gonna add another 1/8 of a cup. Sometimes just using a spoon doesn't do the trick. Hands do a way better job. You're just gonna wanna take a cookie sheet. I just line mine with parchment paper or wax paper. And then we're just gonna take the batter and drop it on there tablespoon at a time. Once you've got your cookie sheet fully lined, go ahead and put it in the oven for 10 to 15 minutes. Bake it at 325. I cooked my cookies for a total of 13 minutes and went ahead and put them immediately on a wire rack in order to allow them to keep cooling. They turned out really good at 13 minutes, a nice little crispy outside but still soft in the center. So what's missing? We still have to add the caramel to it. So I'm gonna do that by these little delights, these little treats that taste like heaven. Sea salt caramel baking chips. I think they may be a seasonal item, but if you can find them, you need to get them. They are so delicious. They truly taste like caramel and sea salt. I went ahead and took 2 servings of those, which ends up being 2 tablespoons. And I'm gonna go ahead and just melt this in the microwave for a little bit, and then we're gonna drizzle it on top for our caramel topping. If you find that your chocolate chips or whatever chips you end up using for the drizzle, if it's too thick to pour, you can thin it out by adding just a little teaspoon or 1/4 teaspoon of coconut oil. Makes it a little bit thinner. So what we're gonna do now that it's all melted down, we're just gonna go ahead and drizzle on top of the cookie so that each cookie gets a caramel bite. Oh, yes. Wow. Those look so good. All you need to do too is chill them for a little bit after you do the drizzle on top. Yeah, you should probably chill them, but we're gonna try a bite, shall we? See if they're any good. And I'm not even like a big caramel apple person, but like, do you understand that right now? Do you guys like understand what's happening right there? It's like little bites of heaven. Wow. Consistency is on point. Take another bite. Woo! They're sweet, they're delicious. Consistency is perfect. This is a great way to use up any of those leftover fresh apples you have from apple picking this season. Put them to good use. Add a little extra nutrition, a little extra vitamin C to your cookies, and they're high in protein using our machine way. So make sure to get your MTS nutrition needs at tigerfitness.com. Using my link, of course, down in the description box. I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. If you do make them, go ahead and tag me on the Instagram, KaraCoreyFitLife. You can follow me there as well, and I shall see you in the next recipe.